right, greetings everyone, my people. There is fire on the mountain. As I told you yesterday, that this visitation of this congressional men, that the story is still unfolding. Now as I'm speaking to you, Nigerian politicians are so evil. They are so evil in numerous ways. They wanted to make this visitation to be only in Abuja, the center of this one Nigeria. That is where they wanted this visitation to end it. But do you know what? the Americans said no, that this visitation is going to be extended to other states. So as I'm talking to you, as we are waiting for the final conclusion, my people, the evidence is so numerous. America traveled down on the way from Abuja down to Middle Belt. So my people, I want you to just sit well while we watch things ourselves, because it is a win-win and a good news. Let's watch the video. Don't go anywhere. It's worth watching.
About 2 days ago, we saw that the American legislatures entered Nigeria, and they were accompanied by the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria and some members of the United Nations. They said they came for a fact-finding mission. So there are so many questions I'm going to explain that people have been asking about.
There, Boko Haram. So the Nigerian military can be spared to go and attack their neighbor, but they can't keep peace and stop ISIS in their own country. What kind of president is that?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, Tinubu has very long-standing ties in the United States. Max Blumenthal and David Hundeyin, who's the latter is a Nigerian journalist, very famous, did a brilliant piece on Tinubu in the Gray Zone. Everyone should read it, about Tinubu's ties to cocaine trafficking networks in Chicago in his earlier years. So this is the type of guy that we're dealing with, in bed with the CIA, in bed with all these narco trafficking units. But of course, the West backs up the real narco terrorists like Tinubu, who, as you point out, are ignoring, I would say, the assault on their sovereignty by Western-backed terrorists like Boko Haram. Also now, JNIM, another terrorist organization linked with Al-Qaeda, has also entered into Nigeria. They have been causing a lot of chaos in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger the past few years. And what is the goal here? Well, the goal is to try and take as many of the resource-rich regions in these countries, in particular in Nigeria, and the U.S. will cry foul. They'll say that Christians are being genocided, even though Christians and Muslims are being killed in both very high rates. Actually, far more Muslims are being killed than Christians in Nigeria. And then Eric Prince or some other private military contractor will get to send in their mercenaries to Nigeria, and they will take up all of the resource-rich land, the mineral-rich land, the gold-rich land in Nigeria, and illegally steal all of the resources. As for the question of why can't he do anything about this threat in his own country, in Nigeria, but he launches all these airstrikes or these planes in Benin the moment there's a coup, there's a simple answer for that. President Macron of France gave a call to Tinubu today under the guise that there was a new offensive led by the Boko Haram terrorists in Nigeria. He made an emergency call, and apparently it wasn't about Boko Haram, because if it was, I'd imagine those fighter jets would have been used to do targeted airstrikes, hopefully on the terrorists, but instead they were used to go into violate the sovereign airspace of Benin and presumably strike the coup leaders.
Now, as you mentioned,
receiving a delegation from the United States on a fact-finding mission to Nigeria. We've been talking about this issue since that infamous post by President Donald Trump and the threat of coming with guns a-blazing to Nigeria if things are not fixed. Your take on these stories?
Okay, real quickly. I totally condemn every coup, and kudos to the Nigerian forces that went out there to quell the coup. It's not today that Nigeria has been protecting the democracy of West Africa and Africa in general, and kudos to our soldiers. But the bone of contention that Dr. Abadi picked out is, did they do it legally? Because there's a proviso in Section 5 of the Constitution that talked about the president notifying the Senate. Was the Senate notified? And that's why people are now drawing comparisons with the case of Niger. Because in the case of Niger, we all saw the leak that happened, that Nigeria was already preparing a strike. And then the matter came to the Senate, and the Senate advised against it. But what we saw here is that all of a sudden President Tinubu, after the fact, just announced that Nigerian troops had been there and they had quelled the coup and uprising, which we support. But the way it was done. So the question is, will President Tinubu now come back to tell the Senate? Because there's also a proviso when you read through Section 5 of the Constitution that talks about that, okay, that the president can do it, and I'm sure that's where the government will hide under. That the president can do it if it's a limited operation, if it's impinges on national security. I don't think they'll be able to prove that, but maybe they will prove that, oh, because it's so close to home, it impinges on national security. And in the next 7 days, maybe now they will now formally make an appeal to the Senate. But the most important question is, and a lot of people are asking this, why did it go through the Senate for the case of Niger? Is it because of cultural ties? Why is that the Senate questioned the case of Niger? Because prior to even the strikes in Niger, there were cases of protests in the north. So we should also look at that. But let's go back to it. In as much as I condemn coup, is Talon a saint? No. And you see, the reason for the coups in these African countries and why an average watcher of television today might support those coups, despite the fact that I condemn the idea, because, and why I condemn the idea of a coup is that once you start, you don't know where to stop.
Yeah.
Everybody that has force now can take power. Even Yahoo boys and criminals can take power. But the question is, are the African leaders not even behaving like Yahoo boys in the first place? Look at Talon. It was just on Saturday. Talon passed, and the National Assembly was probably Robertson, passed a law to extend the presidential term to 7 years. Anyway, Talon will not be a beneficiary. But the most important part we should look at about that law is the 25-30 man Senate seat that pretty much second guesses what the lower house does. There are indications that Talon might want to put himself there to be able to check this his anointed candidate minister. And Talon had been very high-handed, like Ouattara. You see, when I even look at the hypocrisy of ECOWAS and they say the volunteer force, and I'm seeing Côte d'Ivoire in there. Côte d'Ivoire, with Alassane Ouattara, that has violated democratic tenets, that has committed this act of stateitism in power, stateitism in power, that because most of his preferred successors died, like Hamid Bakayoko and the likes, he decided to stay on the power. He stayed there for like 16 years. Is it countries like Togo? Togo did the same with the constitution. They've made the role of the president ceremonial. They have a council of ministers that the president leads that has the real power. So all of the African leaders have made it very easy for the coups to happen. So in as much as we are saying we condemn coups, we should also check these Yahoo boys we call leaders. Because across the African continent, there are a bunch of Yahoo boys that always think of themselves and not the interests of the people. Secondly, as regards the what's it called?
NSA.
NSA.
Fact-finding mission.
That's very good. But Americans already know the facts of what's happening. There's been mass killings. I'm happy that Americans are on ground. We knew there was a fact-finding mission that was supported by somebody that's been nominated as ambassador today. We know how that ended. But the truth has to be said. Where is the government going to show us those that are complicit in all of this? If the government cannot show us, then there's a level of complicity going on. Yesterday, they released 100 people. You release people from Niger. There are no killing of bandits. There are no bringing the bandits to book. The playbook is way too obvious now. That's why some people are saying, isn't it looking like collabo? They kidnap people. Till today, the government has not been able to tell us. Those that ordered the troops to leave the secondary school in Kebbi.
They said an investigation.
Investigation my foot. My investigation done. Investigation my foot. So they don't know who gave an order that troops should leave. And some minutes after, people came in there and picked up our girls. Now, about 100 of them came back. The NSA was even giving us updates that they are in good condition and everything. So why can't the NSA root out those criminal elements that took away the 100 people they've not released now? This thing is looking like collabo. And except we have that level of sincerity. So we are having all of this, and because the government is not standing tall.
All right.
I thought I had the producer saying I have 5 minutes, but I will try to, in cases, you know.
Is it trying to increase it?
Yeah, I may increase it, but it's as follows. Now, chapter 8 of the UN Charter talks about preventing, forceful removal of legitimate governments, democratic governments, and regional groups coming together. Article 21 of the ECOWAS protocol retains that principle. Article 25 of the ECOWAS protocol further explains that. So if you look at it, on the surface of it, my gut feeling as an ordinary man would be to say, oh, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has acted reasonably. He has tried to respond very quickly. It was an emergency that was happening by the border, next door to Nigeria. Yeah. President Yayi Boni, who was the predecessor of Patrice Talon, used to refer to Republic of Benin as the 37th state of Nigeria. So, the president could say, oh, Sunday morning, this has happened. Maybe there is some collateral damage that Nigeria may suffer. Let's quickly move in. But it was not just about impulsive reaction. We were told that the Republic of Benin made two requests. One, that Nigeria should help secure the airspace. Two, that Nigeria should even send in ground troops to secure constitutional institutions in the Republic of Benin. So President Tinubu may have acted along this regard. Now ECOWAS says, oh, we have deployed a standby force. That standby force, does this exist in reality? That standby force is not something you can call up in an emergency. Because to the best of my knowledge, I may be wrong, it's only Nigeria that went in there. And Nigeria is acting on the basis of the brotherly request by the Republic of Benin, which is just next door. While, as an ordinary man, I think that that's nice for Nigeria to show that, yeah, we're the biggest country in West Africa. Yeah. We will not allow any nonsense. There is the legal aspect of it. Now, some people may say it's political, it's about survival, it's not legalese. But the Constitution of Nigeria is the basic law in Section 5. The president of Nigeria, if he sees that Nigeria is facing imminent attack, is given powers to deploy troops. But subsections 4 and subsection 5 of that section 5 says he shall get the approval, the ratification of the National Assembly. Did the president seek the approval of the National Assembly, even if it was a weekend, Sunday morning emergency? Now, if you go to section 305 of the same constitution, under which the president of Nigeria as commander-in-chief can declare a state of emergency, sub 2, sub 3 will seem to explain that, look, the president also needs the concurrence of the National Defense Council and then that of the National Assembly. However, if he does not, if he acts without getting the approval of the National Assembly, the Constitution of Nigeria says within 14 days limit, he has to get the concurrence of the National Assembly, who will ratify that action. Now, a community reading of Section 5 and Section 305, sub 2, 3, will seem to tell us that the Constitution of Nigeria does not allow a situation where the president of Nigeria, even as commander-in-chief, can act unilaterally. And the whole idea is to prevent a dictatorship. Our Constitution is modeled after, American democracy Constitution. Yeah. So President Tinubu having done this, they may say, well, he consulted with the leadership of the National Assembly, he called people, he didn't act unilaterally, he needed to protect Nigeria and all of that, or respond to a brotherly request. He will have to, before 12 noon today, transmit a letter to the National Assembly to say that this is the action that I have taken. I need the ratification of the National Assembly. That's what our law says. But you may say this is not legalistic and all that, but we have to respect our Constitution. And then the National Assembly can be persuaded to say, well, okay, Nigerian troops are in Republic of Benin for this reason, for that reason, and it was an emergency. The president needed to act to prevent collateral damage. But I salute the Nigerian soldiers, the Air Force, the ground troops who went in there clearly for one reason. It was a demonstration effect to send a signal to anybody, any ambitious person in Nigeria who may want to imitate what is happening, what has happened in Mali, Madagascar, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Niger, Chad, that the Nigerian military has the capacity to quell any kind of violation of the constitutional order. However, President Patrice Talon has spoken, but President Patrice Talon, I didn't hear him paying special attention to Nigeria. I thought if we deployed our troops, we incurred cost. Patrice Talon should, at least as a brother, say, Nigeria helped or ECOWAS helped. But he said loyal forces. Who are those loyal forces? We are a sovereign country, and President Tinubu may have shown brotherhood and solidarity. We deserve to be commended for that. Finally, the situation in Ondo State. We just had the Imo Economic Summit. And one of the things we said is that these states have to provide an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, for entrepreneurs to thrive.
All right, you have watched the video and they confirmed it. Nigeria government are evil. As these congressional men landed in Abuja, they wanted to make everything to end in that Abuja. Now these people say no. This visit is not for only Abuja, that they want to extend this visit to some other states, which is the middle belt, particularly where this thing happens the most. Now they go enter Benue State. As they enter Benue State, you know, say Benue State, the governor of Benue State is Reverend Father. Now they begin to investigate, they interview this man, questioning him, asking him different questions. Did you know why they asked him this kind of question? Because they wanted to make sure they use his own words as their own evidence. And why all this is going on? I see underground men working secretly. This present one you are seeing, they are not the only people in Nigeria. If you don't know, there are still other men, other secret men that is working underground, investigating some individuals to find out what is really happening in the country. So for me, the US is doing a great job, because every evidence that they will use to nail Nigeria will need to be well documented, so that the world will not rise against the USC. So my people, it's a good job, and we have to give them every support that they needed, so that this mission will be accomplished for the sake of a common man, not for the interest of these politicians that are making our life so miserable. And the best of it all, after all this saga, what will shock Nigeria will be disintegration of this country. Because without disintegration, this country can never, I say this country can never function as a country, because the Britain who colonized this country never designed this country to be functioning as a country. It was designed for the benefit of some individuals, the politicians, the rogues, the ancestors who call themselves the politician. My people, who am I? I'm only a messenger. If you love what I do in this Global Love Channel TV, please do well to touch your hand for subscribe button, like and turn on the notification bell. And don't forget that an injustice for one always remain an injustice for all. If you see something, always say something.